Start. Welcome everyone. Happy.
Use the mic.
I am using the mic.
Yes, like that.
Okay. Well, last year, for Black History Month, we had the same panel. It was the best meeting we've had since I've been around. It was just, and I missed most of it because my wife was in the hospital. But we thought for Juneteenth, it would be good to do it again. And thank you all so much for agreeing. And the best part of it is that it is Juneteenth today. 260 years ago was when General Gordon Granger came to Galveston to tell that slavery was abolished. And that was met with much jubilation. They got away with it because the Civil War was still on. They were not going to listen to what Lincoln said, but it was 2.5 years that they were slaving away, and no idea what was going on in Washington. But the actual order that General Order Number 3 that was read had some interesting stuff in it. And the most interesting thing to me was the promise not only that slavery had ended, but that what was now beginning was an era in which there would be, quote, absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves. Well, the formerly enslaved never saw that. Their descendants never saw that. I don't know if we'll ever see that. I mean, we've made some progress, but it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and now it's worse than it's been in a long time. When you read about our sociopath in chief removing the bust of Martin Luther King, I think Dr. King is probably happy not to be in the same room. But it's and welcoming white Afrikaners whose descendants of people who stole the land and now they're victims of racism. I mean, it's very bad. But we're all here. We know what we have to do. We got rid of Donald Trump once. I've been saying I thought that the Republicans were going to kill him, frankly, because he was unelectable. Shows how much I know. But he will be around longer than he is. Okay, so anyway, let me. I think probably everyone here knows the panel. I'll just call out the names. We can get started.
Michael,
Angela.
Oh, okay. All right. Fine. Okay, that's even better. Okay, good. I'm happy to stop speaking, except I have to congratulate Ms. Odom on her granddaughter's second. Okay, and
I was famous before she was.
yeah, I know. I was going to say she was Yvonne Odom's granddaughter before you became her granddaughter. So, okay, Commissioner Burns.
So
Give her a mic.
use
the mic so people on Zoom can hear. Everyone here can hear.
that's the same one. Yeah. Oh, okay. So we're gonna pass this. We're gonna.
Yeah, it's the only one we got working.
All right.
And get a little close to it because it's
Like this. Is that? Yeah. Can you hear me in the back?
I can hear you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. So, good evening, everyone, and thank you for inviting us again to the Delray Democratic Club. We are honored to be here. Happy that you enjoyed the panel so much that you wanted to come back for a rerun and a return on that. So thank you so much. I am Angela Burns. I am a retired educator, Palm Beach County School District, 34 years. Longtime resident of Delray Beach. I've been in Delray for 61 years now. My grandmother was born and raised here in 1909, the Newman family. And one thing I want to note is that the first Black Democrat registered was my aunt, was a relative of mine.
Ah, nice.
Was Monroe Newman. Her last name was, she was a Monroe, but married into the Newman family. But she was the first registered Black Democrat in the city of Delray Beach.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And you've already touched on Juneteenth, so we don't have to go into the details because I don't have the names of the generals and all that. It really didn't matter. But just glad that you're having us here on Juneteenth, which is a celebration for all people of the African diaspora that were enslaved in this country, when we all got to enjoy the freedom. By the time Texas decided to join the party, it was June 19th, 1865. And as you mentioned, the emancipation happened 2 years prior. So there's, the Civil War was one of those things, and we heard that they had property, all kinds of things. But this day is the day that 100% of these states had acknowledged and was recognizing. So that is our celebration. So we're going to get started with our panel. This is a tribute to, as you said, you use it for Black History, and now for Juneteenth, very appropriate. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to do a tiny introduction, and then I'll allow them to introduce themselves. They have Ms. Odom as our timekeeper. So we have a woman whose footsteps echo through the halls of history, our very own Ruby Bridges, Yvonne Lee Odom, who integrated the schools here in Delray Beach. And I'll pass the mic to Ms. Odom, and she can introduce herself.
Okay, let me put the clock on myself. Good evening. Yvonne Lee was my maiden name. And just to let you know, I born in Daytona Beach, Florida. My father got called to pastor in Boynton, St. John Missionary Baptist Church, where I'm still a member there. He pastored 42 years there. And I was an active player and everything else at Carver, segregated because that's where all the Black kids went. And I'll go into details as we follow, but I am married to my high school sweetheart. We still married. We have 3 adult children and 7 grandchildren. And I just had my 4th great-granddaughter on our Father's Day. Yeah. My son, Eddie Odom, the 3rd, gave birth to, his son's wife and her name is Alana Yvonne. So they named her after me. Yeah. So it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm anxious to tell you the history because my father always say, when you know better, you do.
Want to go outside? Or you want to eat?
So
Which one?
related with the
Outside?
other ladies who can share their stories, because it's important that you understand. And it's not that we're trying to glorify it, but you need to acknowledge it. And then we can move forward from there. So I'm good.
All right. So you can go ahead and pass the mic to Ms. Deborah. I can speak louder. And I just picked a little tidbit from her history. Ms. Deborah was the first Black cheerleader at Delray Junior High School, where she courageously broke barriers but did not feel welcomed by her peers or the system at that time. And I'll let Ms. Deborah introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Deborah Davis Walker. I too am a native Floridian, born in Tallahassee, Florida. And we ended up in Delray when I was 3 years old, as my mother also taught school 30 plus years in the Palm Beach County school system. In the 7th grade, I went to Delray Junior High, or I landed at Delray Junior High, because my mother was teaching at Carver High School, senior middle and senior high school. So to escape being under my mother's thumb, I went to Delray High with probably another 24 African-American students in my 7th grade year.
Okay, thank you. So the next panelist, a fighter for justice whose defiance in 1972 speaks to the fire of youth, arrested during a riot at Boca Raton High School while we were being bused, and I say we because I was there too on that day. Bused to Boca High School during our when we integrated the schools in the city of Boca Raton. Ms. Ann Stacy Wright.
Thank you for such kind introduction. I am Ann Stacy Wright. I am the second child of 11 with my mother and father. I came to Delray Beach at the age of 5 years old. Yes, I'm considered a fighter. I'm considered a rebelizer and all of the above, but I will go into details later about my fight and my continued fight here in Delray Beach.
Okay. And our final panelist is our community griot. Miss Ernestine is a storyteller and a historian. Her memory is immaculate. There's no doubt there. She remembers everything. And she breathes light. Her memories breathe life into the Black business district that once thrived in the city of Delray Beach. So, Ms. Ernestine, if you would introduce yourself.
Good evening. Ernestine Holiday. I came to Delray. Excuse me, sorry. I hate it all.
Gonna bring again that answer.
It's all.
I'm sorry. Okay, my name is Ernestine Holiday. I was born on the Glades, as everybody can say them up. In 1942, I came to Delray at the age of 5. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm the mother of 4 children, grandmother of 9, and a great-grandmother of 5. My oldest great-grand is 10, and my youngest is 7 months.
Oh, wow.
Tell you the rest of our history later.
And I didn't tell my part either. I am a mother. I do have 3 adult children and 3 grandchildren. My husband was killed 13 and a half years ago in a car accident on close to home, close to Lake Ida Road. However, last Friday, I lost my dog. Diesel died. Diesel died, but he was old. He had a good life. He was very well taken care of, and he took very good care of me. And I could see the life leaving him. But he was 14 years old, and they told us that he wouldn't live past like 9. But he was 14 years old, and
Well, he had a good life. He had a good life. He had a good life.
very practiced him because he followed me everywhere I went, and he was 100. Well, he was 135 pounds when he was healthy. He was 110 pounds when he died, but my baby. So anyway, that's it. Before I get sad. All right. So we're gonna go ahead with our panel discussion, and my first question is for Ms. Odom. Ms. Odom, what do you remember most vividly about the day you first entered this all-white school?
That very first day, but let me give you some history. First of all, Plessy versus Ferguson was the law that said segregation was legal. Fast forward 1954, when the Supreme Court ruled that that law was unconstitutional, and with all deliberate speed, they should integrate her. Fast forward to 1961, Palm Beach County hadn't done anything. Here I am from Boynton, but went to school in Delray, completed my 9th grade year. I started as a freshman basketball. Mr. Pompey was my coach. I was elected. Ms. Carver attended for the following year, because y'all just don't know how Black folk did things when they were in school.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was royal. So I would have been on the court. And beginning of my 10th grade year, my dad, when I came home from a football game, he just nonchalantly said, "Well, Bonnie, I signed some papers for you to go to Secrets." Bonnie is my nickname. And I'm like, "You did what? I want to go there." But then that was a Thursday. I went to school the next day, and then everybody was like, "Oh yeah, you will be good. You need to go." And when I found out later, it was almost like a Jackie Robinson. People must have saw something in me that I would be successful, because if I work, then 999, I told you these niggas didn't belong there, So that I got a letter from the school district telling me, and with of course through my father, to bring me to school mid-morning. Now, I didn't realize they had done all of this, because remember, I was 7 months after Ruby Bridges, and everybody know what happened to her. So they blocked the roads off. It wouldn't allow any cameras or all of that. And so my dad drove me to school, and they had, at the end of the day, there was one photograph of me coming out of the school that they got to from across the street, and that's what made the paper. And it said, "Long Negro student quietly integrates Secrets." But I met in the principal office with my dad, Mr. Bob Fulton, who, if you know Fulton Holland, that's the principal at my school when he was there. Holland was the Black attorney who filed the lawsuit against the district to integrate the schools. Now, it took so long, fast forward, his kids were gone by the time the judge ruled that you need to integrate. So we had a very good conversation with Mr. Fulton. And that's what I tell people. I knew right away he was a nice man.
Yeah.
But very nice. And my dad was very blunt with him. Now, I didn't know this, but somebody told me he had a gun on him.
Oh, well.
But he laid the rules down, Mr. Fulton. They wanted me to use the girls at the faculty restroom. They wouldn't put me in a PE class. And those of you who know me, that was my thing. So I just said, I'm not using the faculty restroom. I'm going to use the same restroom all the other girls did. And so make a long story short, the young lady who volunteered to escort me around, Paula Adams, we remained friends all these years after 40 years, because we lost track. And then she called the Sun Sentinel and wanted to know what happened to me. And of course, I never left Delray. And so I spent 3 years there. The first year, I was the only Black student in the whole school. But people often ask me, was I afraid? And my answer was, I was not afraid. And when I became a teacher, that's something I want to instill in my students, that confidence, that no matter what, you can step into a situation and be okay with it. And one thing I learned, because I can go on, I got my timer.
Wait, I hear more. But why were you, hold it. I have a question in the audience. How are you you were the only Black student? Where exactly were you? Where were you exactly? You were the only Black.
And the was
Where now?
my closest school. But
What was the school she's asking?
Secrets. It was Secrets. What was
But where? The only Black student? What?
It's where
Because I was the only white student in Stone Mountain Elementary School in Atlanta. I was the only white student. So I just was wondering where you were you just said you were the only Black student. I was just curious where that was again. I didn't hear it.
Delray Beach and
Delray
later.
Beach. Oh, okay. Very good. Yeah.
Which is now Atlantic High School in Mercer. That's another story that we talk.
Well, I was in Stone Mountain High. I was the only white student. So anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, and that day ended, with me leaving. And the headlines the next day was there, and we can go on about the 3 years I spent. But the main thing I learned, I was like, I'm smarting a lot of these pictures. Because we were brainwashed. We'll go from there. So I'll take questions later, you know, the
I
details.
have one other question
Yes.
before you pass the mic. Did you know in that moment that you were making history?
Oh, absolutely not. Just wanted to go. I was just going to school and my dad had volunteered me. Then all the kids and faculty at Carver was so elated that I was the one that's chosen because they didn't force it. They were asking for volunteers. And then no white children volunteered to go to black schools and vice versa. No black kids volunteered to go to white schools because everybody was satisfied.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So the committee, from what I understand, tried to go to each community to see if they could select somebody who would in fact volunteer to go. And I was that one.
All right, thank you. Did we want to take it? Is there a question before we move on to the next panelist? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll come back to you. Yeah.
Well, I have a question. I have a question in the audience. Can you see me?
Go ahead.
I want to know what y'all are looking left and right, but I want to know.
What was that?
What?
I want to.
Let's hold.
Y'all are looking left and right, so I'm not used to this, but I want to know.
Hold the questions, Bill, a little later when they.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Miss Ann, you 1972 and the
Get the
70s.
dates right. Now, I did fall of 61. Now think
But-
about
Well, now that's what I wanted to put the mic back. What would you say again now, right now?
Julianne,
Please mute.
Okay, so in 1972 was a year of fire for you and me and.
I just wanted to hear more from her, but anyway, okay.
You were arrested during a riot after being locked in the cafeteria with students that were bused from Delray and tear gassed. Tell us what happened that day.
Let me first say to you, I am the mother of one, grandmother of three, and proud great-grandmother of four. I want to get better. That day. Oh, talking to the right. That
What
day.
happened? What happened?
Please tell her to be quiet.
I'm sorry, yeah.
What happened?
You tell her to be quiet.
On that day, there were 3 buses that came from Delray to bus students into Boca High School. When we arrived that morning, we were told that we could not get off the bus. We asked questions, but no one wanted to give us any answers. Me, along with 2 other classmates, Miss Cynthia Barnes and Miss Shirley Sanders, somehow got off the bus. We went inside the school grounds and we looked around and we saw all of these people that were working so hard, all up on the roof trying to get writing down, and we began to read the writing and it said, "Niggas go home. We don't want niggas at our school." So after reading that, Shirley, Cynthia, and I went back to each one of the buses and told them exactly what we had read and we saw on the walls. Well, we all decided we're going to get off the bus and everybody wanted to see what was going on. Once we got off the bus, then they asked us to go into the cafeteria. All of the students went into the cafeteria, and upon us going in, we had a Boca Raton, City of Boca Raton police officer there. And he led us into there. And once we got in there, I noticed that he had thrown like 3 tear gas bombs in, and then he chain locked the door. He chain locked the door, so we could not get out of the cafeteria. There was a young lady, a friend of mine, who was pregnant at the time, and she was gagging along with myself. Now, I'll let Miss Burns tell you how many pounds I was during that time. But I picked up a table and threw it through the glass, and that's how we were able to get out. In the process of doing that, students were trying to get, out and catch air, catch their breath and get fresh air. We eventually were told to go to the football field, which we did, and then they brought buses in. Well, fast forward 3 days later, an officer pulled up to my house. And my mother answered the door and she asked him, what can I do? How can I help you? Well, he said, well, we're looking for Aunt Stacy. And she said, why are you looking for him? You don't need to know that. This is my mother he's talking to. So he said, where is she? Oh, there she is. I'm in the kitchen, fixing dinner. And so he came into the kitchen, grabbed me, handcuffed me, didn't ask ask any question or ask me who I was or anything. Very rude. And then after he handcuffed me, then he took me along with 2 other gentlemen to Delray Beach Police Department. Well, Delray Beach Police Department said, that's not our problem. You take your problem back to your city. We were taken back to Boca Raton. Then we were transported up to West Palm. But meanwhile, in the process, my mother has contacted Mr. Afrazak Strong and several other, Miss Ernestine Holiday, and several others in the community to let them know what was happening, what had just happened. And by the grace of God, I wasn't booked and sent up to where they, hold their prisoners. And it hurts a lot and to think about it, and I think most of you didn't know how it really did. And I was the only female that got arrested, by the way. And those 2 gentlemen, which was Danny and Isaiah Wilson, those 2 young men took care of me. They made sure that nothing happened to me. And they told them, no, she's not going anywhere. Wherever we go, that's where she goes. And they protected me. Now, after getting out of jail, after they got us out of jail, they asked us they suspended us. No, they expelled me from school. They expelled me. That meant I could not go back to school in Palm Beach County anywhere. Wow. Nowhere. That was my senior year at that. That was my senior year. But, my mom stuck by me and supported me 110%. She said, what you did, I'm so proud of you. And she supported me along with my community. They all supported me. They all came and they fought. And Miss Holiday and several others, because of their fight, I was able to go back to school and graduate. I graduated my senior year in 73. But I was accused of destruction of school board property. I was accused of assault on the school board employee. I was accused of starting a riot. I was inciting a riot. It was several others. But, I'll answer any questions afterwards. So I'm going to give it back to you.
I was going to ask, and I think you already answered it, what was going through your mind when you picked up that table? That day. I was happy because we could not breathe. The room was filled with the gas. People were gasping for air. And when she broke that window door, whatever, we were able to get out and breathe. But I
have no regrets for what I did.
Did you think, or you just reacted?
Just reacted. I think I reacted. I might have thought some, but mostly reacted.
So looking back, do you think justice was served?
No.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Okay. And we last question? I think there was at the end. Okay. Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to Miss Deborah. Miss Deborah, you were the first Black cheerleader at Delray Junior Senior High or Delray Junior High?
Junior high.
Delray Junior High. And you broke some barriers as well. So would you talk to us about that?
Well, cheerleading is a popularity thing. And at the junior high school level, I don't think it was that big of a deal, but at Seacrest High School, which is where I went to high school at, the year before I was on the squad, I saw another young lady try out for the varsity squad, and she did not make the squad. And I know she didn't make the squad because she was an African American, because she was as good, if not better, than those 10 people that made the squad. And I was determined. I was on the junior varsity squad that year. This is my 10th grade year. I said, if I don't make the squad in my 11th grade year, we're going to have a problem. And I didn't know what the problem was going to be, but I knew that the African American football players would be behind me. So I tried out and I made the squad. So that was the blessing. I never really had no told to me. Everything that I tried to achieve at Seacrest High School, I was able to achieve. But it was not that they wanted me to be a cheerleader, and my family and my friends all tease me, and they say, well, they think you white anyway. Because you have to know there is a color thing out there in our community too. The darker you are, or the lighter you are, supposedly you get more privilege. So my friends and my family would always say, well, you just look like a white girl out there, but you knew I wasn't white because my hair was as nappy as it could be.
So after you, what did you think when you learned that you could make the squad?
Oh, I was elated. Well, first of all, I worked out every day, literally. I mean, you had to keep your grades up. You had to have a certain GPA. So that I worked on. But in terms of making the cheerleading squad, I had to be the best of the best of the best. And every day in my front yard, you could see me out there turning flips, trying to learn to touch my toes, trying to learn all of the things that cheerleaders had to do. They even went to cheerleading camp in order to be able to be a successful cheerleader. So, I mean, I was thrilled. I knew I was good enough to do it. I just didn't know if I was going to pass the color thing and I was going to be able to get beyond that. But I was. Yeah. So I felt good.
Did you develop any friendships, any lasting friendships?
Yes. I mean, there was 3 of us that made the squad that were in the same class, the class of 71. And the 3 of us actually know each other pretty well. One of them, Paula's dad on Neil's Farm Market, which some of you may know. Paula's stepdad was Mr. Neil. And as a result of being a cheerleader, I was able to get a Christmas job because we were not able to get jobs either back then. So I was able to get a job at working at Neil's Farm Market as a cashier and doing different things there. So it brought some other perks with it.
Perks. All right, thank you. So, Ms. Ernestine, take us back. All right. Take us back. What was Delray Beach like when Black businesses lined Atlantic Avenue from I-95 now east to Swinton and down Fifth Avenue? Take us back.
Well, Fifth Avenue was a Black Wall Street.
Yes, it was.
From the south side to the north side. We had doctors, lawyers, dentists, pharmacists, grocery stores, restaurants, and the whole 9 yards. Atlantic Avenue, from where some of you may know where the 7-Eleven used to be on Atlantic Avenue, across the exactly where the library is today. There were Black businesses just east of that our former commissioner, Charlotte Durant, was her first real estate office after she left the office of city commission. Coming west, Dr. Norris, who was a Black physician. All those apartments where that parking garage is behind the 7-Eleven, they were properties of Dr. Norris. Where the courthouse is now, there was a service station that a young man that I influenced to go to the GM mechanical school up in Jacksonville. I was working for an agency back in the late 60s that a government funded program, community action, migrant program. We know we have community action program that is still around, but that program mainly tried to get other things for migrant workers. There were 4 young men here in Delray that I recruited to go to that school. We had 2 certified mechanics and 2 paint and body workers. One of those mechanics worked at that station. Where Tony's Market is now with the new apartment, 2-story apartments right across from the tennis center. There was other Black businesses. There was, everybody talk about the GTT, which is the Georgia Town Tavern. It was a popular place for a lot of people. Then there were restaurants. There was Russell's Grill. There was Potts Restaurant. There was Claxton Townsend taxi stand on the north side of the street. On the south side of Atlantic Avenue, there was Mr. Fred Monroe's taxi stand. Inside of his taxi stand, there were 3 barbers there. Just west of his, right on the corner of where Checkers is now, there was a Gulf station that the proprietor was Preston Wright. Preston Wright later was the owner of the Paradise Club. On the northwest corner of 5th Avenue and Atlantic was a service station there. The first owner I remember as a little girl was Mr. Raymond Blakely. Later on, the other certified GM mechanic that I recruited was McNeil Thomas. Some of you may know McNeil because he later had a place across the railroad track on southeast.
What are you talking about?
Excuse me?
What are you talking about?
Not it.
We're giving Black history.
Please. We're talking about Black business.
We're talking about the Black history that was in Delray. And later on, McGill Thomas was proprietor of that station. Right west of that station was a little restaurant that was ran by a woman, which is Mr. Blakely's sister, Miss Ruby Macon. On the south, behind where the Gulf station was, where Sweet's restaurant is now, across from the Strong and Son funeral home, was a restaurant, was called Bakersville Palace. It was owned by Mr. Louis Baker Sr. and Kate Baker. On the southwest corner, there was a pool room there that was owned by Mr. Ted Jones.
Now, all of these are Black businesses on Atlantic Avenue.
We're talking about Atlantic Avenue. I'm not going down.
And where the tennis center is now, what was there?
That property where the tennis center is now, that was the city recreation field where Carver High School, as well as Seacrest High School, played football.
Yeah.
Carver played on Thursday nights. Seacrest played on Friday nights. That was, and that was ever since I can remember.
Yeah.
Cause my older sister used to carry me to the games with them. Okay,
Can you talk about how did integration change the community in these businesses?
integration wiped out all of our blackness.
What? Integration.
Atlantic Avenue have, as far as black businesses are concerned, none. We had 3 nightclubs in Delray. We had 3. We had one on the corner of 6th Avenue in Atlantic, which was owned by Mrs. Ivor Barrett. We had one on Southwest 9th Avenue, the Elks Club. On the corner of Northwest 9th Avenue in Atlantic, the Paradise Club. Oh, and then we had the other little Greens Inn. We talk about Atlantic Avenue now. Further out, on corner of 14th Avenue and Atlantic Avenue, was a little place called Whopper's Inn. I mean, they already had a lot of businesses. On the corner of 12th Avenue and Atlantic Avenue was Bird's Paint and Body Shop. On the corner of 10th and Atlantic, which is the community market now, that was Hagwood's Market, which was owned by Mrs. Kate and Mr. Harry Hagwood, who is the in-laws of former Commissioner David Randolph. These are black businesses that was on Atlantic Avenue. Yes.
How did integration exactly, how did it result in the takeover of those businesses? What was the mechanics of it?
The mechanics of what integration did. Believe it or not, I live 5 houses behind where the Paradise Club is. To give you an example of what some of what I call the disgustingest things in the world. I moved behind the Paradise in 1964. One of the reasons they said that they closed the Paradise Club was the noise coming from the Paradise.
Sounds familiar.
As a resident that lived behind the Paradise, we never heard no noise from the Paradise. But guess where I heard the noise from?
Oh,
You'll be surprised. And I can still hear it today from across Swinton Avenue. But they never complained when they never did anything when we complained about the noise from downtown. I admit there were people standing out in front of the Paradise, but they wasn't that loud that they disturbed the people that lived behind there, like they are doing for the young man that has the business now on Atlantic Avenue, calling the police. The police are quickly going to shut their businesses down, but they didn't want to listen to us about the noise that was coming from downtown. And I have a problem with that. A big.
Rightfully so.
Some of the other businesses that was in Delray, who everybody in the black community called a godsend, was Dr. Simon Bond.
Yes.
I don't care what you went to Dr. Bond and complained about as a pharmacist. He would say, okay, tell me how you feel. He'd make you sit in a chair behind the counter in his drugstore. There were people that if you had a cold, okay, tell me your symptoms. To tell you the truth, I got more results out of Dr. Bond's medication with just telling him what's wrong with me than paying my money, going to a doctor's office, and they give you the medicine they gave us. He say, what did the doctor say was wrong with you? You tell him, well, I'm not filling this prescription because this is not going to do you one bit of good.
Yeah.
And he have big stuff. My mom was a sufferer of gastritis, terribly. Forever going to the doctor. My mama was so sick one night, about 9:30. We took her to Dr. Bugs and she told him how she was feeling. He had something called gas eats.
Right, I remember.
He made a medication called gas eats. Trust me. My mom took one dose of Dr. Bugs gas eats, and my mama never had gastritis. The first black doctor that was in Delray was a doctor out of Broward County, Bondi Mizell. He would come to Delray in the evenings after he left his practice in Fort Lauderdale and work until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. The first black dentist was a dentist from West Palm Beach. Same thing. So these are just some of the things that happen in our community. Because our people worked on the farm back then. We didn't have maids to clean the people's houses across Swinton back then. Fifth Avenue in Atlantic was where all the farm laborers, contractors parked their buses and trucks to carry people to the farm to work. One of the farms that was out there was Smith and Sunday Farm.
Yeah.
That was McNeil's farm. That was Magona Flower Farm. All these places that black people worked. And I get highly insulted when I go to the grocery store and pay $1 something a pound for green beans. When we had to pick beans in baskets, 32 pounds in a basket. And guess how much we were paid?
So it's $10.
50 cents. But 32 pounds.
Thank you, Ms. Ernestine, for all that. Ms. Ernestine, we go.
I have a passion for this.
She has so much information. Yeah, so much information.
Yeah.
So, I'm just gonna ask a question for any of the panel. I have 2 more questions and then we can take some, questions from the audience. So, when you look at Delray Beach today, what gives you hope? Either one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Or is there hope?
You know,
All about that.
I'm the optimist, and I have spent my entire life, because when I integrated that school, it taught me so much. And look at the difference in the years, 71, and all the riots came because Black folks weren't living in Boca. So they came to Delray to get their Black folks to be bused to Boca. But the fight is still here. I listened at the education thing and I said, talk about the elephant in the room. To this day, the perception is that an all-Black school is inferior to a white school. That's how it was in 61 when I integrated. And my children went to integration school. Joy was a queen and all that kind of stuff. Candy too. Everybody know Candy. Big Cat, my son. He had all kind of friends. He was the king and all of that. But one thing I instilled in them, if your little white friends can't come to your house, you're not going to theirs. And that's how we have to continue. That's what gives me hope. And nationally, I know right now it's grim, because one thing I've learned, because my father was a historian, he was a very quiet but intelligent, and he instilled a lot. To maintain white supremacy, a white person will vote against their own interests just to maintain white supremacy. I don't want that to happen on our local community. And I tell people that move here from New York and wherever you come from, don't come to Delray thinking you're going to do what you did away. Yeah. And those of you who've been here understand how strong this community is, because that's how I grew up. First year teaching, I had the nerve to ask my principal why I should join the union. I'm 22 years old, right out of college. After 2 hours, one of the things he told me is the school board gave the white teachers a raise and the black teachers didn't. And they hired a young attorney named Thurgood Marshall. Yes, and I'll never forget that. And these are kinds of things I try to share with my kids. And I'm not a rebel rouser in the sense that I wouldn't pick up a chair, but I'm gonna tell you the truth, and I'm not gonna quit, because that's what you want me to do. And that's what I would say to give me hope. People like Commissioner Burns gives me hope, like the commissioner here. Once you get to know who we are, let us disagree, but don't quit. Don't think you got to take my job from me because I disagree with you. How are we going to get that message across? I don't know. It's happening nationally. We can see it before our eyes. But the hope that I have, like my dad used to say, now, white folks, y'all getting to see what we've seen all along. That's why we have our own little inside. We just gonna sit back and wait till the people who voted for him turn on him. Because evil is evil, no matter what color it comes in. So that's what gives me hope for Delray. It's always been, I married my high school sweetheart, who, that's why I had one foot at Carver and one from Seacrest. And we went to all the proms, even if they didn't want me to go. Boca Town Hotel and Club, that's where the prom was, and I didn't find till later that they had it outside because they didn't want me inside. And Carver had their prom in the gym. Yeah. So I always saw the balance. And I knew how proud the black kids of their school and how the white kids were proud of their school too. But sometimes that mutual respect, except in Delray, you go back to Coach Cooper and Coach Pompey. Because we played on the same field, Thursday night was Carver. The white kids and white families came and watched them, even though it was segregated. When we watched Seacrest, they had a section for the colored. Oh yeah.
We sat on the west side, they sit on the.
That's why it was, but that was how it was, but they respected each other. And we always had Pompey and we always had Zach. Zach was the finger waver, but Pompey was the come let us reason together. And you know, white folks like somebody like that. They'd rather deal with Pompey than to deal with Zach. But anyway, it gives me hope. And I'm glad something like this, and we could tell you many stories of 3 years that I spent at Seacrest. Yeah. But to piggyback on her, my Miss Pelkin still is. She's 100 years old, my PE teacher. And I wanted to, go for cheerleading and all of that because I was in the black schools. We played against other schools. Going to the white schools, they only had intramurals. So that stymied me. If I had stayed at black school, I probably would have been a Tigerville, Tennessee State. I was that fast. Yeah. But she said to me, she said, well, Yvonne, she didn't tell me not to try the cheerleaders, but she said, the other schools are not ready for you. And what she was telling me without saying, don't bother, that's how she put it. Other schools, because we would be playing Belgrade, the whole kid. You're talking 1961.
Yeah, piggyback on that.
Yes.
When Carver High School won 2 championships in the 60s under Coach Coffey, we went to Daytona Beach.
I was there.
And
Father Lopez.
We rode from Delray to Daytona. I had 2 nephews that played, and we followed them everywhere. And Ms. Oda could tell you, we had to fight our way out of Daytona Beach to head back to Palm Beach County because this was a white school, a private white school. And these little black boys out there beat the crap out of their little white boys. It was not a pleasant night, and we won.
All right, okay. So thank you. I had a question I wanted to ask. If you had one sentence that you could put in a history book of Delray Beach, what would your one sentence be?
Let me steal that. Let me get that because I'm gonna steal this one from Miss Odom. Delray Beach does not have ordinary Negro. That's the written out this.
Thank you for that. Sid.
That's to be the same as what Ann just said, and we have T-shirts that say, well, we are not ordinary Negroes, and it says YLO, which is Yvonne Lee Odom, because she's the one that came up with that. I think the thing that gives me hope is that we get up every day and we're still talking to each other.
Yeah.
We're trying to find out where that sweet spot is, where we can all have kumbaya, et cetera, et cetera. It's a tough fight. And Washington DC is not making it easy, but we refuse to give in to that hatred.
That's right. The rulers, the elite, have been doing this since Bacon's rebellion in 1675, when black indentured servants, black enslaved, and white indentured servants all rose up. And after the insurrection was put down by the plantation owners, they went to the whites and they said, we're going to give you a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, and at least, you know, you're not black. And they divided them. And in the late 19th century, the Progressive era, the same thing. You had, you know, farmers, blacks and whites together, and every time it's happened, that's what they've tried to. And you know what Republicans are doing today is you said vote against your economic interests. The white working class in the South has been doing that for the last 50 years, you know, and I don't know what's gonna, maybe Trump will make things so horrible economically for everybody that they'll wake up. But,
Well, so we'll take questions from the audience. I know there were a couple of people that had questions. Jennifer back there had a question. Judy had a question. Michelle, all right. So,
my question is for Ms. Odom.
Yeah.
You said that you were the first Black student in your year, but you were there for 3 years.
Yes.
So then how did the integration move
Okay,
on
good
after
point,
you
yes.
senior year?
My first year I was in 10th grade. And the second year, my sister who was behind me, they told them that the school was full. So she graduated from Carver the year after me, my sister Brenda. And then my senior year, there were 5 of us who actually graduated in a class of about 350 who lived in Boynton. And now by the time my senior year, the Black kids from Boynton was assigned to Seacrest now because it was a closer school. So that's how that, but then later on, because it wasn't going fast enough, that's when the forced busing came, because the freedom of choice was not working. And the federal government said you had to integrate. And by that time, Boca had Boca High, because those white kids were my classmates at Seacrest. Because remember, the white kids from Boca, Delray, and Boynton all went to Seacrest. The Black kids from Lakewood, Boca, Boynton, and even Pompano and Deerfield went to Carver. Right. So that was our high school, and Carver was a very prominent high school. And while I'm at it, I reactivated, because I knew when I went to school, they had the Hilltoppers Club for Seacrest, because the business people supported them, right? Then Carver, I learned later, had what was called a quarterback club. So I have reinstated that. They call the Hilltoppers Quarterback Club. You pay $500, y'all can go to both schools. Yeah. But the point I wanted to make too, we're the only school, the only Delray school that when they dissolved the schools, that kept a little bit of both schools. Seacrest colors and Carver's mascot. Seacrest colors was green and white. Carver's mascot was the Eagles, and it became Atlantic High School Eagles. And we're the only school, probably in the state, I don't know, but I know in Palm Beach County, all the other schools dissolved the white schools, they dissolved the white, black schools, and they came up with a new mascot, new colors, not in Delray. And that stems from way back when the black and the whites were on the same field, literally, and they were mutual respectful of each other. And by me being over there, I know Coach Cooper tried to get my husband to try to told my husband, "Well, your girlfriend go over here, why you can't?" Trying to recruit those black kids to come over there and play for Seacrest, but honey, he loved Carver. He would never leave Coach Pompey. So, hey, we just got to keep talking, keep sharing. And you'll siphon out the no good. Trust me, and you will siphon off the good.
Let me say one quick thing.
Yeah.
And I am in the first graduating class of Atlantic High School. I am a part of that green and white and that eagle. We actually celebrated our 50th reunion, 1971. So in 2021, we had a big reunion with everybody.
Wow.
Are you gonna let
them
talk? Are you gonna let them talk now?
My question is for Ms. Ernestine. If you were to place a percentage of the blame, where would the greater percentage lie in terms of, if we're speaking of our disappearing Black business aspect of Delray Beach, from how much would you place on federal action like eminent domain, construction of 95, and how much would you place the blame on local forces and their advocacy for change?
Well, I give you an example. On Northwest 3rd Avenue, where the tennis center is, they wiped out a whole block of Black residents. And if it had come down to the person that was over the CRA when CRA first came to Delray, his thought was to wipe out Delray from Atlantic Avenue to the north, from I-95 to Swinton, Lake Island to Atlantic. On the south side, from Atlantic Avenue to 10th Street. So if my thing is, if they had their way, they would have gentrified the whole Black community.
So local.
So you would place a larger percentage on local forces. Okay. Because we historically know how, other historic Black neighborhoods in Florida were changed as a result of highway construction right through the center of our communities. And that destroyed a lot of the businesses and residences that were there.
Well, believe it or not, Mrs. Odom, Deborah, and Commissioner Burns and Ann can verify. 15th Avenue, North and South, is no longer. We still have 14th, but we have the only streets that come out to Atlantic Avenue past 8th Avenue is 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. 13th and 14th on the north side, you no longer can come out to Atlantic. On the south side, 12th Avenue is the last street you can come off of from the west. So this is just showing you how it was eliminated. So all those signs, welcome to Delray Beach, you have to get up and then that. Those were businesses. Charles Oxendine had an Amoco station on the corner of 14th Avenue in Atlantic.
Zoning,
Yes.
code, yes,
All that stuff eliminated a lot of our business.
Mark, you had a question?
I did. I was wondering that when you were cheerleading and you were integrated the cheerleading staff, how much of the student body was black, and how many people on the basketball, football?
Oh, yeah.
You know, the basketball and the football team were probably 60-70% black. The student population, I'm gonna guess was probably 30% black. My senior year, my junior year, I was the only black cheerleader. My senior year, there were 2 of us on the squad, but my senior year, they also created the Eaglettes. And when the Eaglettes came into play, a lot more black students were on that dance team. I mean, it was probably about 50-50 on the dance team. That gave those folks an opportunity to participate in something else that was popular.
Did you feel like they were also pushed out of other extracurricular activity like a debate club or other various things that you had?
I have an outgoing personality. So I was in everything that I tried to get into. I think most people that tried to get into stuff after about my 10th grade year, most people that tried to get into various organizations were in there. I can look at my yearbook from my senior year and we're all through the yearbook. However, quite a few of us were on the staff of the yearbook staff too. I mean, we figured out what we needed to do.
Believe it or not, back when Carver was an all-black school, Seacrest was all white. I'm going back to the 50s now. There was one black person in Delray that participated at Carver's football game as well as Seacrest. His name was Joseph Daniels. Joseph Daniels was a graduate of Carver High School, I think in 1949. But he later became the band director at Carver in the middle 50s. But he twirled a guitar. He would get a broomstick, a handle, a mop handle, and had fire on the end of it. They would turn the lights off during halftime. It was the most beautiful thing you ever wanted to see. Because Carver didn't have a band till 1953. But Seacrest, Delray High School, when I was a little girl before it became Seacrest, they had a band. And he's the only black that participated with both schools.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, thank you all for such a wealth of information and your courage. I want to go back to what Michael said to start this program. You're optimist. I'm scared to death in this country. I'm scared for all the progress that was made. We're going anyway, really fast. Last week, I had the privilege of speaking at a graduation ceremony for young black men. It's called Connect to Greatness. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Cassandra. And it's just because of the 501c that I run that I was there.
The husband is one of our former students.
Oh, is that what your mom? Is it? Oh, really? Anyway, if you don't know Connect to Greatness, you should get to know it. I watched these young men come up and, the seniors graduating, getting their scholarships, and I'm supposed to speak. And to be honest, and I've done public speaking because of my work my whole life. I didn't want to. Because I didn't feel I had anything positive to say, and I had to say something positive. If those boys, those who were shipped you, they were in front of you today, given what we started in Michael's counseling, what's maybe the one thing you would offer? And even if there were girls there too, but this happens to be, an all part group. What would each of you want to offer them?
I would say, just what I told you initially. What I had when I walked on that campus. Because when I walked on that campus, they asked me that all the time. And as I look back, the confidence was there. And we have beat down our black men so that we got to get that back. And one thing I always said as a teacher, I taught 45 years all at Delray. I'm working to pay my dad's Social Security. And I need you working to pay mine. We are so quick to get these black boys in jail.
And another thing, I think why historically the girls were educated a lot more, and I got that from my dad, because black men never wanted their daughters to be subjected to a male. So the men, they felt they could just work and do anything. And that's why in college, if you go to any black college, it's almost like 10 to 12 one black female to male. But that's what was instilled years ago. So that's what I would work on, the confident aspect, because no matter your circumstances, maybe because I grew up without a mom. My daddy raised me, and I used to tell my kids that, oh, isn't that a good reason to fail? This, oh, you don't have a mama, so we have to acknowledge what their hurt is, and then give them the tools to get over that hurt. That's how simple it is, because we all got hurt. Some kind of way, if I knew something happened to you, but those black men, we have to be able to give them to understand that they can do something. She gonna talk about Dr. Norris. Dr. Norris was my daddy's doctor. You know, but there's the hospital, he had to sue them to get privileges to work there and the surgery, and became one of the top surgeons in this city, Virgin North. So yeah, so that's what I would do, and it's okay if it come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Because from 10th grade on, I had no black teachers. Because when I integrated, I left all my black teachers behind. I had none, and that's what I try to tell these parents. Don't be talking about what the color of the teacher, even though it's good representation. You better try to make sure your child got a good teacher. That's important.
Thank you. I can tell you something else. I worked for Dr. James, who's a dentist on Fifth Avenue before Dr. Norris built his clinic out on Southwest 12. There was a white man that came in Dr. James' office. I'm telling you now, I will pay you such and such a thing. He asked him, what in the hell do you mean what you will pay me? You pay me what I cost to get out of my home. He was going to tell him what he would pay him for his service. So this is the kind of stuff we grew up in.
Did anybody else want to address that? I mean, I just think that it's important that we, as Ms. Olin said, that we just encourage our black young men, that they are.
They are somebody.
That know who they are. To see, we have so many examples of successful black men, but you don't hear about them. You know, you got to go dig the information out. And so I think as much as they see that, and as they just need to know, so that they know who they are. We are very resilient people. We are very determined, and they just have to be instilled. I mean, I've taught my sons from day one, you can be anything you want to be. There's nothing that you can't do. And, you know, I support you in whatever you do, as long as you're doing the right thing. And so I just think that encouragement from home and just instilling in our young people.
Especially our young boys.
Yeah.
You have to let them know you are somebody.
You are kings.
You are kings in our eyesight. And you have to encourage them, have confidence in yourself. Have confidence in yourself. And you don't let nobody put you down. As long as you're doing the right thing, I feel that you should be treated like everybody else. No matter if you are picking up the garbage.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be respected.
It's just a commentary. I think I know I was sheltered. I grew up in the Northeast. I don't want to make this about me, but I went to a very liberal private school. And when I was in 7th or 8th grade, there were a lot of Black students, relatively speaking, in the graduating class or the junior class going into the senior class. And the students took over the administration building. And, because they wanted to be sure that there were as many Black students coming in as there were going out. And I'm sitting here and listening to what happened to you in the 70s. And this was around 1970. And I'm just floored. It's two different, and Believe me, yeah, there is plenty of racism up there, but it's just, I'm like, I mean, I knew this, but you know, hearing it. Like what happened to you in Florida and so.
I really don't think that, racism is still alive and well at Oklahoma.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
never other, believe me.
And in the north.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yes, thanks. I mean, for those of us who just moved here like 9 or 10 years ago, or, here's Delray, and, it's like it was always like this.
From where, please?
New York.
See, what I.
But from anywhere.
Yeah.
So we don't know the history, I really appreciate knowing the history because I have absolutely no idea what was here, before I got here. And the whole history of it. I'm curious about one thing. What kind of bands played at the nightclubs? Would it-
Oh.
I love going to concerts and stuff.
Cal Basin, believe it or not, Cal Basin
Yeah.
stayed at the Prince
Still
Hotel right
that.
in Delray.
Oh,
And there were other entertainers. Nat King Cole even came to West
Oh, wow.
Palm Beach.
The La France Hotel,
Yeah.
because blacks back in the day, and I can remember, they couldn't stay
Yeah,
in
like
that
a hotel.
I remember when Hank Aaron played in West Palm. And Dusty Baker, who my husband was a roommate with in his rookie year, Dusty could not stay with his teammates. It hasn't been that long. It's in my lifetime, I remember that. And so a lot of them stayed with families. Or they had hotels that they could go to because they couldn't go where the other ones. Look at the Jackie Robinson store again.
Yeah.
I watched it on the plane and I got a new appreciation of it because you just don't think it. But anyway, that's just how it was. But Delray is unique. I don't know if y'all saw that commercial I did. I meant what I said because I've been here my entire life. Delray is not a typical town when it comes to the relationships of blacks and whites and the deep rooted history of the black people in Delray. And we just not gonna be pushed over because that's how we were trained.
Well,
And you hear people that have come here recently, 10, 15 years, and I heard someone say, there is no history in Delray. And I looked at him and I was like, wow.
There's no white history.
I mean,
Remember that
black
one there.
people were settled here before Mr. Linton ever came around.
Yes.
But we have to tell our history. We can't depend on someone else to tell our history. It's our responsibility to tell our history. So
What was on Linton?
what was on Linton?
Yeah.
nothing,
called
but
town.
believe it or not,
No, the founder of Delray Beach was Mr. Linton, and they named the city after him, and then it got eaten up by mosquitoes or something, so they came and renamed it. But but I'm saying before it became the town of Linton, there were black settlers from the Bahamas and from even the Asians from wherever they were from. They had the pineapple.
believe it or not, Denton Boulevard is less than 50 years old. That's the only thing I can think.
It's funny, David over there is my cousin, and we've been coming down here since our mothers lived here in the early 90s. Okay.
Oh, my
And so
God.
we only moved down here 10 years ago, 9 years ago, whatever. But I remember it from the early 90s, and I see the changes in it. And the changes that I see in it is, in the downtown area, there aren't as many local businesses. There's chains in the stores, and it's not, it's not the same feel that it was.
All they have downtown now is restaurants. And we used to have the Ben Franklin 5 and 10.
South
We had
Florida.
Joy, we had Anthony,
Yeah.
the Western Auto was right there on the
Woolworth.
Bicycle stuff.
Yeah, this
Right
way.
now, it's not bad.
You should unmute the people.
Okay.
I'm afraid to.
So,
No, the tail end.
if there aren't any
Yeah.
other questions.
Well, there's a comment here from Linda Jackson. You know her, I'm from up north, or as we black people call it, up south. There was racism and discrimination in New York. It often takes different forms, but it's there nonetheless. People should not kid themselves with racism because they're a southern thing. Thanks for having this very informative.
Yeah, I mean,
panel.
somebody
I
could
was
just
gonna
say something if they have
earlier,
questions so people
what
can
Dr.
talk.
King found when he went to Cicero
Yeah.
is, I mean, as long as there was de jure legalized segregation and de facto. So, and in the north, it was de facto, that it was segregated because they redlined districts and, and the good areas, the banks wouldn't lend to black people and whatever. And when Dr. King came to Chicago, I mean, I think he said something like it was the worst hatred he'd ever experienced in his life, worse than when he was in Birmingham. I mean, so yeah, there is it was surprising.
I went to school in the South.
That in a upscale sort of private school that it was more welcoming.
I went to
Well,
school in the
don't
South,
get carried away.
in Virginia, at William and Mary, and it was the guys from Long Island and New York that were,
Just like down here.
that were felt the strongest.
Strongest which way?
Racism against black.
Yeah.
The people, the guys that were from the South. They had a long relationship.
Right.
With black people,
Yeah.
it had somewhat kind of settled,
And
or
that feel
matured
yeah.
into a coexistence, but. To the guys up north, the civil rights movement stuff was something new, and it really was shocking. Really, the guys from Long Island, that was great.
I think sports helped a lot too. I remember Bear Bryant, when he got put to death by this black kid that came out of California, and now he's one kids now. And that's where I find hypocritical, because now they want these kids just for the sports.
Right.
I just find that hypocritical.
Bill Brand,
Yeah.
remember the basket?
Oh, I
player?
remember.
He said that the biggest problem in America is racism. I mean, and he knew it because of the people that he traveled with, and there's this white anti-racist Tim Wise. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of him. Yes, and he gives and he gave as an example a poll after Katrina, where they asked black people. Well, they asked white people what were the biggest problems. When racism was, and you could rate it on. It was a big problem. It was not so big a problem. It was a little problem like junk mail. And something like 20% of white that were polled put it in the junk mail. There we go. After Katrina, and you saw what you saw there, and when they asked black people, it was like 80%, 90%. It's a big problem, and it is, and it, it's everything. It seems to me that everything in our culture and what we see is it promotes them. I mean, you have to. If you're white, you have to fight against it because that's what the media is.
Yvonne, you made a comment about athletes. Asia Wilson, who's an all-star WNBA basketball player, they have a statue erected on the campus of South Carolina where she played. When her mother was working in the town, she had to walk around the campus to get to work because black people were not allowed to set foot on the campus. Now her daughter has a statue. To me, what that tells me is it wasn't that long ago.
No, I'll give you another example. When I told you about both hotel and club, when I was in high school, which I found out later, Susan Pell was on later school board. She's the one shared that and told hotels never to do that. How about when my granddaughter They welcomed her to play a match at Bogota Hotel and Club. I didn't spoil her invaded because I didn't talk about it that much. And because of her notoriety, this is coming to light and we're able to, talk. Because that's something we've always encouraged. Get to know somebody, say what you believe, because the truth will come out. So it happens all the time. But I can hold a courage and say, you ain't going there. You know what I mean? That's how they treated me. Right? We were denied service at a McDonald's. Sure. And I did not go to a McDonald's and my children wanted to go because coming from Daytona, Burger King, McDonald's, they say, we'll be glad to serve you in the pickup winner. And that happened to me in high school. There were 4 of us together, 3 white girls and myself. Roy Castle and Boynton, they tore it down since, rather than integrated. Now we just teenagers, we didn't think nothing of it. We go in there after a game to have a sandwich. And the waitress came out and got everybody an order but mine. And then said to me, well, she went and got the manager, oh, we'll be happy to serve you at the counter. And see, now that's why I can't stand phony smiles, y'all. He smiled as he was saying it. Yeah. And the other 3 girls, they just started crying. And I just told them, just take me home. But I mean, we've experienced. But yes, but I don't hold a grudge because that hurts you more than anybody else. So you have to acknowledge that happened and don't tell me it didn't happen to me. Oh, yeah. But it happened. It's like it took Ann a long time to do this. And I remember when she worked for the city because of that happened in high school. They didn't even want to hold it. And that's why she loved my husband so. Because he stood up for her. Because, that's we tease about that rebel rouser. That she got that tag on her as a rebel rouser. But she loved him to this day because he would nobody bother her and look at her. So
can you imagine going to Dot right down Atlanta?
yes, sir.
There was 2 water fountains. One said color and one said white. That's exactly a place that you know. Any service station that you went to, you could buy gas, but you could go to the bathroom.
Right here in Dublin.
Well,
Thank you.
I see, I was gonna say we're done and thank you so much, but Commissioner Long has his hand up, so.
Sorry to hold us up.
That's all right.
I just wanted to thank the 5. I mean, we're so lucky to have folks like you would give us this, especially entitled white dudes like, you know, we need this sort of historical context and perspective. You know, I came from a little coal mining town in Appalachia. There wasn't a single black student in my graduating class. You know, the Klan was active. We ran Dragon a couple miles away. Yeah, they used to speak at our high school. It was crazy. And now this is the 90s.
Yeah, you're not.
You know, that, and people should remember that still exists all over this country. There are extremely isolated communities all over this country. Because the way our electoral college works, their voice gets amplified. These communities have absolutely no diversity, and they don't have the benefit of folks like you all in the community to give perspective and to give this sort of history. I don't think I met a black student until I went to college. I don't think I met a black peer until I went to college. I don't think I met a Jewish person until I went to college. There was absolutely there still is no diversity where I come from, Western PA. And there's so many communities out there like that. And so I just want to say how thankful I am to have this experience.
You know, my dad used to say, they don't wear white hoods anymore, they're in suits and ties.
I really want to respond to Commissioner Long because, you know, I'm from the north, originally from the nation's capital, but I was also educated in the South, way back in the day, in the late 60s. But if I were to say where in this country where I've been, because I've
lived and worked in California and Arizona, Tennessee. But if I were to say, where is the most racist place I have ever lived? It would be State College, Pennsylvania, where my husband went to graduate school.
That's what I would call. Yeah. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and we worked there for 5 years and I have never been
Yeah.
called the N-word more times anywhere ever than in that place. Oh, because it was a big rah-rah thing after the Disney Lions play. They'd be in their trucks and just driving down the road and shouting the N-word at every black person they saw.
Freak out a little bit.
Well, we are so thankful that you invited us again. We hope that we get you again. Before you get up.
Graduated 2008.
I got it.
Yeah, you're good.
Now. I'm for.
It actually isn't.